This is Diablo 4. We're here on Xbox Series X. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So this is the beta release, so keep in mind that a lot of the stuff here is a work in progress, but it's a good look at kind of where they're headed with the game. You get to play the first act, which seems to be about 3 to 4 hours of gameplay, and yeah, I was quite impressed by this in terms of like the visuals, the style of gameplay, and just kind of the return to a really grim, dark, messed up sort of world. You might not see that because we're in these snow-barren wastelands, but the caves, the crypts, everything is so creepy. So what are we getting here? It's a 4K resolution, 60 FPS. And I will note that since this is the beta, if you are pre-ordering or buying the game, consider using the affiliate link in the video description, as that will take you to Microsoft Store and help support the channel. And yeah, it's just kind of a really interesting effort where you're able to play it. It kind of notes local co-op for 2, online co-op for 4, and it's like this shared sort of universe with cross-platform play. It's a quite intriguing sort of offering in terms of like, you know, kind of the scale and the gameplay of it. I really did quite enjoy this. This is the overall world map. A lot of this stuff is like locked, but I did enjoy playing it. It was really cool. We've got a few different classes. I've got the barbarian going on here, and you know, it's got like the traditional stuff, the necromancer, the rogue, the druid, you know, differing options, and there's actually like a little bit of customization too with your characters. You know, you change your hair, a couple different facial designs, male, female. So they got a variety of, you know, options when it comes to how you kind of look, and then of course from there you're collecting like gear and salvaging gear, and then you're leveling and continuing to get new skills and abilities. But like I said, you know, it's just the first act, so our adventure is kind of just beginning, because the intricacies of like the skill classes and everything like that do change considerably, at least from the looks of it, as you continue to progress. It seems like there's really expansive skill trees and whatnot. From like a narrative standpoint, the first act largely revolves around, you know, you kind of figuring out what's going on in the world, and also this hunt for Lilith and figuring out what is Lilith after, what is Lilith doing, and it leaves you on a bit of a, like a teasing point where you're kind of like, okay, you have no idea where it's headed or what's going on, and that was kind of intriguing. But it very much is your traditional Diablo experience where you are collecting loot and gear and leveling and improving, and then replaying on harder and harder difficulties for better and better loot. That definitely seems to be the loop here, as is kind of expected. Now, this game did have a number of disconnect issues and long queue times when I was playing it. I would imagine the full game will hopefully have that all ironed out, hence the point of doing a beta, especially for a game that is so online oriented. I would imagine that is actually the case here. So yeah, it's sort of, again, quite intriguing, because you're getting not only quests that you do, but there's also like these sort of like community type events you can kind of interact with across the world. So these little pockets of like, you know, you can kind of do this, and there's, you know, there's like a chapel thing you can do, and you know, well, actually with College of Light or something like that. And it was like kill all the enemies, or this is you're supposed to kill so many enemies in so much time. And there's like these little pockets of activity throughout the world that you kind of go and experience, and you can do these as like other players that happen to be, you know, kind of nearby. And the main towns seem to have other people too that are doing their thing. It's really quite intriguing. I did have some kind of issues setup-wise getting players to join, so I'm assuming that will also be ironed out for the full release, because it's got like a sort of like a co-op angle to it, but through like the BattleNet for crossplay stuff. So yeah, we'll have to see how that all pans out, as I have, you know, kind of no idea where that's headed. But like I had said, it's got like a really nice, eerie, well-detailed style to it. Like I think the visuals look absolutely excellent. I did notice that some segments, some of the textures for certain things took a second to load in, or some of them didn't really seem to have loaded in textures for some spots. Again, assuming that's a bit of a beta thing. But like I said, so far, a whispering key. You know, so far, I'm actually thinking, outside of the disconnects, that this is running really, really well. It's looking really, really good. It's been a lot of fun to play. It's that typical sort of, you know, Diablo gameplay that you would expect if you've, you know, kind of played previous entries in the series. Oh, I'm hoping this doesn't disconnect. Oh, we're good. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. Creepy, foreboding, detailed, dark places. And, you know, some of them are like, you go into some of the more hellish landscapes, you know, it's just like eerie things and tentacle stuff, and there's blood everywhere, and there's gore, and it's really creepy. It feels a lot more like, say, Diablo 2 Remake in terms of, like, just all of the dark spots, as opposed to Diablo 3, which I think was a little bit more kind of lighter, if that makes sense, like, just aesthetically. So I feel like this is almost a return to, at least, you know, from a visual standpoint, the older versions of the Diablo franchise, and I think that's quite excellent, as this is supposed to be a really dark, messed up kind of world. And that by itself is kind of a nice little enticing bit, at least I thought so. I still would like to see how a new, more shiny area might look, and I have no idea where those are. Like, they could exist in a, you know, another part of the map, because as I said, we've, you know, seen but a tiny shred of the overall world that they're going for in this game. So I'm very, very intrigued to see the rest of it. Needless to say, this was kind of a chunky, but kind of impressive beta. You know, that gives you a good tease of what to expect gameplay-wise. You know, you can kind of replay it, and you can, you know, do the different classes, which is kind of the point I'm at, where I'm going to be doing, you know, checking out some of the different classes here. But it seems to be really good for replay value. It seems to have pretty immersive locations with some good levels of challenge to them. And I think they've actually got a really winning Diablo design here. Like, I see a lot of potential for this one to do very, very well. As long as they nail that base game, and then they kind of build upon it, I'm very, very intrigued to see how this one goes, as I foresee this one being like a long-term sort of Diablo game, especially with the, you know, kind of the focus they're going for with the live service type stuff, if they deliver on that, obviously. But for a beta, and from a beta perspective, this is actually one of the more impressive ones I've seen, again, outside of the disconnects. Because it really does seem like it's basically ready to go, outside of, you know, obviously their servers just aren't adequate or set up for this kind of thing. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. A little cinematic heavy though for me, I would say. I'm not, you know, I don't mind cinematics, and I don't mind intense storytelling in games, and, you know, it's actually, to me, kind of important for the Diablo titles to have, like, a, you know, cool kind of story with intense cinematics. But I was also kind of like, it took quite a while to get into. I think there's like 20-something minutes of, like, you know, cinematic bits, like, right off the bat. And it did establish the scene and everything, but, like, you know, and then you do, like, 2 minutes of gameplay, and it's, like, right back into cutscenes. And once you eventually got into, like, that open world, you know, I think it was a lot less focused on the cinematic bits, but yeah, I do remember a lot of heavy storytelling on this one, which isn't a bad thing, but it was just like, you know, I want to get in here, I want to start, like, cutting and grinding and stuff like that. It was a bit weird that they chose, like, a slower start to it, if that makes sense. But yeah, it seems all on pace with, like, traditional Diablo stuff. You know, you've got your waypoints. The checkpointing also seemed pretty good in regards to, like, you know, when you would disconnect, you'd get back into an area pretty fast, which is nice. But I quite like, at least for the Barbarian, you know, the class feels kind of cool. I've gotten to use tons of different weapons through my loot. It seems like there is a very large range of enemies you can come across too. You get all kinds of things from like demon stuff to skeletons to corpses to spiders to all manners and means of demented, messed up creatures. So yeah, I quite liked what they had going for that in regards to just like variation and, you know, the foes and stuff like that. So I think not enough animus to fill this area. I think they've got a really impressive thing going on with this one. I think this is actually probably going to be a very big hit, and I think it's going to resonate well with the Diablo fans out there. Either you're coming from, you know, something like, say, Diablo 3, and maybe wanting a darkness kind of turn to it, or if you're coming off of the recent remake, I think you're going to feel like this is right in line with just offering more gameplay for you to enjoy, which is, you know, kind of awesome. It's always nice to have more Diablo. And if you've been waiting since, like, Diablo 3 came out, like, obviously there was lots of, you know, there was a good amount of Diablo content from Diablo 3, but, you know, it has been a significant amount of time since Diablo 3 did initially launch, and even since we got, you know, large, meaningful content in that game, right? So it has been kind of ages, and it is interesting. Yeah, it is interesting to finally have, you know, that new entry in the series. This is what people have been, at least I think I've been kind of waiting for, is a nice, fresh, new start entry for things to go from, and I think this could be that base, assuming the rest of the game kind of, you know, continues with this level of quality and interesting storytelling and, you know, surprises. I'm also just kind of wondering where they're going with the whole Lilith thing. Like, they kind of are showing her as a bit of a, like, a wild card. You know, it's like the wars we know, but she's, like, doing her own thing, and I'm kind of, like, wondering how that's gonna, you know, kind of impact the overall world of Diablo. They also do lean on Diablo 3 a little bit, too, for, like, character-type stuff, which you might find interesting if you're coming off of Diablo 3 freshly. So, yeah, that was really, really quite surprising, as I wasn't expecting that aspect, too. Deposit it into the urn. It shall be done. But as you can tell, like, it's really, really creepy. Now, just imagine this, but, you know, some of the areas are just, like, splattered with blood, and, you know, other messed up things, or you're fighting, like, weird wraiths, or creepy creatures, or, you know, all means of messed up stuff. Travel to the Undercroft of the Rebirth. Ooh. Return the Bloodstone, okay. Always weird stuff to do in the Diablo universe. I also like that the quests do seem to vary quite a bit. Like, there's more than just, like, go and kill all these things, or go kill this dude. Like, you actually, sometimes you have to, like, bring stuff to certain things, and it's a little bit of a mix-up on the levels, and it seems like they're trying to do more storytelling as well within non-cinematics. I do think some of the transitional pieces between characters, like chatting and stuff, could be a little smoother, because it's, like, sort of stilted as you see your character awkwardly, like, put away, say, his sword and helmet, and then, like, scramble over to kind of hit the right spot to then talk to an NPC and stuff. So those were little awkward spots that I noticed, but, you know, that's nothing that can't be smoothed out a little bit if they want to. But other than that, I really, you know, I'm hard-pressed to find problems that sort of distract from this. Like, this is a very, very well-done beta with a wealth of content past the story bit. I do wish, I'm really sitting here just kind of wanting to, you know, continue story-wise what's going on, but I'm also like, okay, I guess I could explore the main world, start some new character classes going on, stuff like that. So that's cool. And I'm intrigued by the narrative. I'm like, you know, kind of wondering where they're going. I'm not, like, blown away storytelling-wise what they're doing with it, but I am, you know, it's like a little bit of a carrot where it's like, okay, what is she up to? How does this fit into everything? What's going on here with this other dude? And, there's quite a lot to like about this one. I'm so curious to see what they do with it. That's the biggest thing. Is curiosity is at a high level here, because it's fun. I mean, it's your traditional Diablo experience. You're hacking, you're slashing, you're smashing stuff. You're fighting all these grotesque monsters. It's gory. It's dark. It's creepy. It's seems unsettling. There's high levels of like honor and stuff to it too, which is entertaining. And they seemingly the elements where it's like passive multiplayer stuff is kind of fascinating to me as well. Sort of these Destiny-esque public type event things, which I think have the potential to be fun extra activities you could take in. I just hope they don't make them some kind of weird grindy extra, and it's just sort of like this nice, you're doing, you know, X activity, and it's like, oh, okay, well, there's, you know, this going on here. I'm thinking that would be a very effective way for it to kind of be integrated, and that seems to be what they're going for with it, so I'm kind of quite liking that that is the case. Return the Bloodstone. A crucial object is missing. Return the Bloodstone to Pedestal 1. Did I not pick up a Bloodstone? Yeah, that might have been a thing. I might have missed something back there. It happens. Oh, there we go. That's what I was looking for. All these monsters everywhere. Is retrieving that in the middle of combat the best idea? Well, I guess we should go kill Lord Berlarium or whatever. I don't know. I like what they put together. I am eagerly awaiting the next step, right? That's the kind of thing. It's kind of like, okay, you've teased me. At this point, I'm going to play a couple different characters. We'll see how they all play, decide which one I want to do when I actually get the full experience. But kind of really good. I really like. I think they would have truly nailed this though if they could have gotten the server stuff all properly set up, because that was a huge pain. You know, it was like, and I'm sure depending on when you might have played it or when you're going to play it, it'll be better. But it was like, you know, I spent basically like 2 hours the first time. I tried 3 or 4 different times throughout the day. It was like always like an hour and a half, and it was 2 hours, and then like I got disconnected while I was streaming, and that was like 30-40 minutes or something like that, and then disconnected another time, and that was like 20 minutes, and it was 7 minutes, and sometimes it wasn't working at all, and you know, it's interesting. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, because like everything else, you know, running well, everything else running fine, so it is peculiar almost that they had such a weak spot, because this was also something we saw with was it Overwatch 2, right? So it's kind of like, come on guys, you know. But it is a beta, and you are expected to have issues and server stuff, and that's why they do these betas, so they can test this stuff out so that it doesn't happen at the launch. But usually at the launch it happens anyways, doesn't it? But we'll see what happens. Hopefully they, you know, kind of learn what the big problems are in that regard, and they get it going, because I think this has a chance to be yet another successful and great entry within the very, very well-loved, ever long-running Diablo series. Because seriously, I think, you know, obviously 2 very, 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 very well-loved and everything like that, but there is something about the fact that, like, am I supposed to go here? No. There is something about this that is just really kind of showed me that, you know, it is a series that goes on for a long time, as I'm totally rambling off topic here. I was trying to figure out where I'm headed. But it just, like, it could be very, very good and right up there with those other Diablo titles if they have the successful launch, if they have a good amount of post-launch content in the direction they're headed with it, if everything runs smoothly like this is showing. I think they're really going to have something special, something exciting, something unique, and something that is truly Diablo to its core, filled with really depressing locations, narratives, and blood-soaked walls, and demons, and monsters, and traps, and surprises, and shocks, and cooperative play, and All the Diablo stuff you would expect seems to be in here, at least from what I've seen thus far.